It's bad. Anime.
Hello, everybody. My name is John.
And my name is Rob.
And this is Bad Anime, the podcast where we decide, is this anime bad? And today, we're talking about a movie, I think maybe for one of the first times on this podcast. I don't think we've talked about many movies before.
We've talked about a few OVAs that were released theatrically. I think, actually, no, only one or two. The only one that comes to mind is, I don't know if Vampire Hunter D was released theatrically. Well, no, we also did End of Eva, so.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. We did do that. But anyways, we haven't really done a lot of movies on this podcast, so I figured we would dive into one today.
Especially one that's so critically acclaimed. We're kind of diving it head first. Yeah, people really love today's topic, so I'm already a little trepidatious. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't wait for the wave of whatever the fuck this causes.
Let's see.
Gurren Lagann all over again.
Oh, God, because today we're going to be talking about Akira, the 1988 Japanese animated movie that came out then. And we're talking about, today we're going to do our specific Does It Hold Up version of the show, when we talk about if the movie holds up to today, and also some of the intricacies of the movie that either make it bad or good, depending on how we feel about it generally. And, you know, I got to say, I didn't really listen to anybody else's opinions about this movie until I watched it. But I've really heard a lot about it just around, mostly about it being just an incredible work of art specifically, and the animation being very good, and it being one of the best animated movies of all time. So definitely lot to live up to.
Some people even go further to call it one of the greatest films ever made. Some people even go that far.
That's true. So it definitely has a lot of hype going in. Yeah, which I usually don't like when things have a lot of hype going in, because I watch it and I'm like, man, it's so annoying when everybody's hyped up something so much to you and you watch it and you're like, what if I don't think this is amazing? If I don't think this is amazing, do I have bad taste?
Exactly.
Am I like a bad person? Do I not take good care of my balls when I shave them? There could be a lot of things.
Now.
Well, I do now, thanks to Manscaped. Sorry, we're done with that, actually. But we might not be. But who knows? But yeah.
No, I hope it's still going. I fucking love the product so much. I really hope the relationship continues.
I've been using them like a lot recently. You know, it's wintertime, and it really gets dark down there. But nonetheless, we watched Akira. So I think let's talk about it a little bit. Rob, have you heard about Akira before? And if you did hear about it before, like what capacity did you hear about it before? Did you ever consider really watching it before we decided to do it for the podcast?
Oh, absolutely. I heard about it before. Just being around anime fans, it was almost a little intimidating because it seemed like one of those one of those movies you already should have watched. So people would kind of say Akira and be like, yeah, classic. And I'm like, yeah, hiding the fact I haven't watched it yet.
Yep.
It's one of those seminal works, and it was always in the back of my head. And if we go back, because to pull back the curtain, you and I have a Google spreadsheet where we have listed all of our episodes, and we also have a bunch of ideas for episodes, like, you know, things we want to cover. One of the first things I talked about was Akira. It was Akira, Eva, and Gurren Lagann originally as a three I wanted to do. Was like, hey, do these hold up? Let's examine these. Like, you know. So I've been wanting to do Akira for a long time on the show, and really, because once we had the formation of the podcast in mind, one of the things I thought, oh, finally, I get to sit down and just like watch Akira, because I needed it. I guess you could say I needed the impetus to do it. It's one of those things. Sometimes you're just, especially with a 2-hour film, it's like,
right.
And you know, I'm so, I guess you say utilitarian with how I spend my time, you know? And sometimes I'm just like, 2 hours, you know, because in my mind, I'm like, I can watch like so many OVAs in that time. I can,
see,
you know, I have several music projects going on at any given point. So I'm like, I got to go work on those. So I just needed the ADHD part of my brain, or in my case, I have something slightly different, but I needed that element of my brain to shut off and just tell me to sit down and actually just watch Akira. And I did around 4 hours ago.
Yeah. Which is a great thing. So it's fresh in your mind. And I was the same way about this movie. I mean, I kept hearing about it all the time, and I wanted to make the time to sit down and watch it. But kind of like you, I feel like we have a very similar way of spending our time. And the way that I spend my time is quite frankly just working all the time and just doing things that are either just stuff that's either like, for my career or like for like side projects or stuff like this, or for the podcast, like anything like that. Like I just like to occupy my time being productive in a lot of ways. And the fact that we could watch Akira and feel productive while watching Akira was a big thing for me. I also watched it on a plane to Japan. So that was a lot of fun.
You had a connecting flight and you were in Japan for a few hours. I remember how excited you were. I was so happy for you because we were only texting at the time, but I could just feel the joy radiating through your words. And I'm like, I'm so fucking happy for Bouncy right now. I really am. Man,
it was great. I was just so happy to be there for I was only there for maybe 3 hours. And on the way there, I just downloaded so much anime. I upgraded our Crunchyroll account briefly. And I paid the difference. So there you go. But I downloaded
did you? Thank you.
I did. I actually am currently paying for it, I think. It shifted over after I did that, and I forgot to cancel it. So whatever. We can download episodes now, which is really sick.
Thank you. I didn't even notice that was taken off my account. Thank you.
Don't worry about it. I don't even know how I did it, to be honest. I still have to figure it out. But either way, I upgraded our account so I could download some episodes, and I downloaded the entire movie of Akira, and a couple other things. And...
Well, no, you pronounced it right. You did the Japanese pronunciation the first time, so that's fine.
So that's what I was wondering. Is it like Japanese pronunciation? Because I know it is Akira, but a lot of people say Akira, right?
Well, they say Akira because they're American.
Oh, okay, that's good. Wow, I feel traditional today, baby. I was on ANA.
Thankfully, we've had a lot of protagonists named Akira over over the course of watching animes together. So I would like to think you're reminded of Akira from Devilman and not Akira from fucking X-Arm. I really hope you're not thinking of him right now.
It's definitely Akira from Devilman. And funny that you mentioned X-Arm, because this movie actually had a lot of similarities to X-Arm that I caught, weirdly enough.
Well, meaning X-Arm just ripped this off so heavily. I mean, it's funny now.
Completely ripped it off. I mean, absolutely ripped it off. There's no originality in that show now.
Yeah, and it's really funny because I love this reminds me very much of when you watch Darling in the Franxx without watching Ava first. So it's very much that similar mentality here. But now this time I get to join you. I'm like, oh, I really should have watched Akira first here. I really should have.
But either way, I watched it all the way on the way to Japan. And it was a great thing to occupy that time. It also made me feel productive because I was like, "Oh, I'm doing something for the podcast, and like this is really exciting." And let's get to the movie itself because I think what was wild about it at first. The movie opens up with like a giant explosion, which I think relates a lot to the nuclear bombs of Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Right.
And I think it has a lot of relation to that historically throughout the movie, and those bombs go off, and then the series takes place. I mean, the movie takes place 40 years later in 2019. Weirdly enough, so it's like post-apocalyptic kind of world. And when the movie opened up, and when we started to see what it looked like, I thought I was watching like a remastered version for 2022 or for 2020 or something. And I was like, wow, this just looks fucking amazing. Like it looks so good. Everything's so detailed. The frames are incredible. I did some research on it, and like each second has 24 frames or over. Yeah. It's fucking crazy, the animation on this thing. And then it's
the fluidity of it.
It moves like nothing I've ever seen before in anime. And that means even today, like even by today's standard, it's probably the most beautiful animation I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, this has to be remastered. Like there's no way. Yeah, and I looked at it, and then I was like, no, it's just the 1988 version. Like it's just what it was, which is absolutely insane when you think about it.
The miracle of budgets. It's amazing when you just have
insane budget.
Yeah, when you have a budget and a team who clearly cared and poured their heart into this thing.
Yeah. I mean, the budget for this, I did look it up too. It was like about 8 to 11 billion yen, which is, I mean, nuts. It is an insane budget. And you could really see that in the animation. I think that's the first point I really want to hit on throughout this entire movie. That is the thing that out of everything, you know, the story was interesting. The characters were fine in my perspective, but the craziest thing about this movie was definitely how it looked, and the appearance of it was just incredible, like nothing I've seen before.
Oh, around 99 to 90% of my enjoyment from this film all came from the technical side. Predominantly the animation, but the sound design here was also fantastic as well.
Yeah.
I loved, throughout the course of this film, during very dramatic moments, the sound would cut out entirely and then come back in dramatically.
Yes.
And they did it maybe a little too much for the average person, but I'm not going to complain about giving me more of something I like. So that device really got me. But then and this is something I have to admit right now, I got so lost looking at this film, I had to keep reminding myself to listen to the dialogue and plot. Because I was just like, wow, that looks so cool. Wait, what's going on?
What are we doing?
Who are these characters? I need to Kaneda.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I had to reshift
Tetsuo!
my Tetsuo! Kaneda!
Tetsuo!
And I'm sure there were earlier examples, but I'm asking myself now, did this start the anime and New Japan wrestling trend of screaming your opponent's name at them as a fight's going on?
You know, I think it might have done that, because we've seen the Kaneda versus Tetsuo in so many different iterations, whether it's Okada or Sasuke, Naruto.
Exactly. Or
So many iterations. Shingo,
Naito!
Osprey.
Osprey!
We've seen it in so many ways. And I like that point a lot, because a lot of this show, I mean, this movie, I keep flubbing that, but a lot of this movie, I think...
We always do that. It's fine.
We do.
Because we would always try to refer to OVAs as OVAs. I've noticed that in the early episodes, and until we gave up and just kept saying show. So we're breaking some habits right now, and it's fine.
You know what we're talking about. It's a movie. We don't even do movies that often.
So yes, we're sorry. We're retraining some muscle memory here. We're about to hit 50 episodes, and we only did 2 movies. So spare us, please.
Please. But yeah, that like dichotomy between the two characters, I think, was really one of the main plot points of this movie that I enjoyed. And I think like there's a lot about this movie that really there was a lot of story told via the animation as well, which I super appreciated, because I think there was this big air of like, I mean, post-apocalyptic Neo Tokyo is where it takes place, right? We have all of this like cynicism around new technology and the application of new technology, but also like the government is utilizing it and creating these interesting like psychic weapons in the form of like children and experiments and stuff. And AKIRA, the namesake of the movie, is actually like a psychic weapon that's responsible for the destruction of the first Tokyo, the regular Tokyo that we know. So I think that there's some intrigue in the chaos of everything going on. And of course, this like scrappy Kaneda and Tetsuo, who are part of this biker gang that, you know, don't really have a school, don't really have activities, and had to kind of resort to a life of crime because it's what they know and it's what they had to do to survive, kind of.
It's the only option they have, really.
The only option. And so things like that, the animation told very well in that story about the raggediness and kind of like the garbage everywhere and like how everything's still like neon and stuff. But it's really, really like very edgy kind of looking city is this like Neo Tokyo that they've designed.
Yeah, and you see it play so much into so many films that follow it, and it's like getting to the core of so many things I love. I'm like, oh, you were the influence. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And it really helps when you look at this movie in terms of like just how the scenes look, like how Tokyo looks in this movie is like, wow. I feel like that imagery has inspired so many other animes, so many other mediums, and so many other visions of how, especially like the West, of how we view Tokyo. Because
that's a great point.
Yeah, because this was one of the first movies to come over to the West. That was a really big deal in like Japan and came over to
this was a big and I think that's also has to do a lot with why this movie is so well regarded, because it served very much as a bridge between Japanese entertainment and a Western audience. You know, anime in particular, obviously, but you could probably link this back to how suddenly J-horror started, transcending over to a Western audience. This was a very much a bridge and like a focal point of that media really coming over here. And then that probably led to the American anime boom in the 90s, because after Akira, I think a lot of people started dubbing and then importing all these OVAs over. It's like, we need more films. We need more films. What? This one's only an hour. It's fine. And I think that's why
just get it over here.
I think that's why we had such an OVA boom in America in the 90s. And you can really tie the link almost directly to Akira. Definitely Ghost in the Shell as well. But, Akira is probably the real first shot across the bow.
Definitely.
And,
well, I mean, in a little research, because you kind of mentioned Ghost in the Shell, and so after Akira was released and grossed all of its money worldwide, in the States even too, in the West, the VHS release came out in 1991 by a company called Manga Studios, actually. And that company went on to make Ghost in the Shell and also become one of the biggest distributors of anime in the West. So it's pretty interesting to see like how this movie triggered all of that happening and kind of triggered as you said, the anime boom in the 90s. And I hate how academic I'm being right now, but it's really fascinating to talk about.
Should I point out what beer I'm drinking right now so we can bring this back down to earth?
Tell us what beer you're drinking. I'm acting too smart. I'm not smart, really. Tell me about the beer you're drinking.
It's called Sunday beer.
I love that beer. It's a fun beer. And also, today is Sunday. Haha.
Yeah, that's hence why I bought it, because as I said in a previous episode we recorded, I did some tremendous beer shopping. You've had Sunday beer?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had it multiple times. It's actually, maybe I was too overzealous. It's quite good. I mean, it's not like fantastic, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drinking it right now because of the low alcohol content. It's only 3.9%.
Oh, perfect for a Sunday.
Now, that's the thing. Sometimes it's about sometimes it's about moderation, and sometimes how I like to do that, it's like, well, I still want a lot of liquid, but I don't want to get hammered. If there was less alcohol, I'll feel the effects less. That's how mine brain works.
There you go, sailor.
Am I teaching moderation? No, now I'm being too parental in this episode. Fuck.
Damn it.
We're screwed. Okay, we already talked about our balls.
Akira. We already talked about beer.
I love Akira's jacket.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's so red.
He's almost like a red Power Ranger, and I want to.
And he's got a pill on the back of it too. It's fun.
He's like Dr. Mario crossed with the Red Ranger. I like it.
Yeah, Dr. Ranger, bro. Yeah, but his jacket is cool. His motorcycle is really cool too. And I love the motorcycle scenes.
Actually, apparently those on a serious note again, I hate to go back to being academic about this, but
yeah, sure.
That actually is called the AKIRA slide. It became a very popular trope in anime and even Japanese live action films, like that. The scenes where Akira would basically do that slide, that kind of like side slide thing.
Oh,
that became very famous, and Akira is like the progenitor of that. And I'm like, son of a bitch! I think I've seen that in Western movies too.
Okay, since you said something really smart, I'm going to say something really dumb. The Akira slide sounds like something that you hear at a middle school dance and you all have to dance to, and you're not really excited to dance to it, to be honest.
They make you do it in like middle school gym class?
Yeah, like right after you learn the Cotton Eye Joe, and everybody's like, we're going to do the Akira slide. Now everybody, fight your best friend in Mortal Kombat right now.
Be warned, though, your friend's got telekinetic powers. I hope you have a bazooka.
He's also turning into like an animatronic bear of sorts that's also going to contort into a humanoid robot device that will try to kill you. All right, everybody clap your hands. Great.
See, I wonder, there's so much about this movie that really makes me think, because I have to put myself back. I have to basically re-examine all the media I've seen out of Japan at the time and think, all right, 88, but on a wide scale with this much of a budget. You know what I mean? Because there was already a lot of kind of like grotesque body horror in the OVA world.
Sure.
But the ending of this movie was probably the first time it was seen by a Japanese audience on that wide of a scale, and definitely the first time a Western audience saw anything like that. Mm-hmm. So there's just so much here to break down. just from a technical level alone. And I guess, should we get to what the hell the story is and just talk about it for at least a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about the story. I think that it's important to talk about. And I think something important to mention is that the story was obviously, it was originally a manga. Came out in 1982. And
but
the movie...
But from what I read, though, the plot actually differs significantly from the manga.
It does, because the movie is the first half of the first volume of the manga and the last half of the last volume of the manga just kind of smushed together. And I feel like that's why in the middle of the movie, things just got like, the plot just got a little, what is going on right now, kind of? So let's take it from the beginning.
Yeah, let's also let's
take it from the beginning. Let's talk about so Kaneda and Tetsuo. Like, we're introduced to those characters pretty early on, and the first thing, they're in a motorcycle gang. Obviously, like we talked about, Neo Tokyo being super run down, not much to do, like lots of crime, lots of just like black market dealings going on there. And Tetsuo and Kaneda are part of this motorcycle gang, and Tetsuo is notably a bit jealous of Kaneda. Kind of has that little brother syndrome, like jealous of his bike, jealous of his look. Yeah. His jacket is really cool. He even says at one point, "Wow, that jacket makes you look like Dr. Mario and the Red Power Ranger combined." He totally doesn't, but I thought that.
I think we're getting the meta confused here.
Sorry, I'm projecting. And so they were introduced to that, and the big swing happens when we meet this kind of small green boy. He's like kind of he's a government experiment, which I guess we're led to believe pretty early on, but over time it gets more confirmed that he is a government experiment by the Japanese government. And Kaneda and Tetsuo are in like a motorcycle chase against another gang, and then they stumble upon that boy. And the government's looking for the boy, and Tetsuo makes an interaction with the boy. And I believe they're either really close or they touch, and then something happens to Tetsuo, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on, bros." And everybody's like, and the government's like, "Yo, you touched that boy?" And Tetsuo's like, "Yeah, but like not sexually." And they're like, "I don't believe you, my guy." And
I don't believe you, sir.
So then they take Tetsuo eventually and keep him. And then the whole time they're experimenting on Tetsuo because he had an interaction with this nuclear green boy that they've been keeping. And so then they're
who looks like a wrinkly old man.
He does, but he's small and blonde for some reason. He kind of looks like Jim Carrey from The Mask a little bit.
But with white hair, yeah.
Yeah, but with white hair. And so then they're experimenting on Tetsuo. Tetsuo's going through all this like weird stuff, and he's got these like telekinetic powers all of a sudden, but he doesn't know how to control them. He's just getting really weird. His head's getting really large. That forehead is getting massive, my dude.
The forehead quickly turned into a 6 head.
Oh, overnight practically. And the whole time, Kaneda is just trying to find where Tetsuo is and figure that whole thing out. And meanwhile, there's kind of another group who's like a group of vigilantes that Kaneda links up with because he finds this girl hot. And then he's like, "Oh, you're hot." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to stop the government from experimenting with this weird thing that's never really fully talked about, fleshed out, I don't think." But she's like, "Yeah, we just got to stop the government, man." And Kaneda's like, "You're hot. I'll do whatever you want, man."
I love how Kaneda was so straightforward. He keeps trying to ask her out for drinks several times, even though I think they said he's like 15. So,
which is hilarious.
It was so goddamn funny.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the movie, we're just kind of looking for Tetsuo, and then Tetsuo appears again, and then escapes the governmental facility, and has all of these telekinetic powers now that he's been injected with all this shit. And since touching the green boy in his private parts, he's got all this crazy power right now and a big ass forehead. So then when you get injected
with that bowel virus, things just go wrong.
Dude, it is the bowel virus, my guy. That is so what's happening right now. It's just like that classic 80s anime
virus,
like virus thing, and you don't know what it is, and nobody knows, and the Japanese government is always trying to harness this unknown power, but it just goes wrong, and it went wrong in the form of Tetsuo, who then my favorite part, underrated funny part, where he just grabs like a red flag and wraps it around himself like a little Red Riding Hood cape, and he's just like, "What's this?" capes are cool. And then he just goes around just destroying the city and leveling the whole place.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of images of Tetsuo like with that cape on. Like, I wonder how the cape comes into it, and he just tears a flag off and puts a cape for no reason other than he thinks it probably looks cool. It's never confirmed why he does this. It's just a scene that happens, and I'm like, I appreciated the detail, but I don't know if we needed to see that. You know
As if we needed any more confirmation that Tetsuo has a lot of red flags in this movie. But yeah,
bang my head on the microphone.
I mean, so Tetsuo just is going around, just leveling the city, holds up in a stadium eventually, which is, copied the hell out of X-Arm there, but whatever. He's in a stadium.
Total plagiarism, man.
I mean,
get on the level
guys?
of X-Arm.
Seriously. Or Darling in the Franxx, anything like that. And then he sets up there and he's like sitting on a throne, and he also had a girlfriend who's, I guess, not that big of a deal, but it's his only connection still to the human world. And he's kind of phasing in between humanity. Yeah, he's like phasing in between humanity and not humanity, and she's with him, and she's like,
Miki
Tetsuo. He's Miki, exactly. And she's like, Tetsuo, are you okay? And he's like, his body's like becoming robotic, and he's like, which the animation is sick here, and his like skin is like morphing, and he gains like a new arm and shit, and it's wild.
Yeah, he's becoming a fleshy, robotic, giant monster.
Yeah.
And it looks so good here that I was captivated. I'm like, oh, things are getting real now.
Yeah.
And the one scene that got me, because Kaneda shows up. He's like, well, gotta do something about this. The green children all show up, and they're like, we gotta do something about this. He's gonna like destroy everything. And at one point, we hear the inner turmoil of Tetsuo. He's like, my body's acting on its own. It's not listening to me anymore. And I love it because it was a very quick, sudden death scene. It was Kaori got trapped in his body, and you just see like him squish her like a bug.
Yeah.
And like in the pocket that she was being held, you could just see just a pool of blood, and that's it. Presumably she got squished, and it's like, ooh. Yeah. But I love how quick the death scene was, and they didn't really linger on it. A lot of other films that might have like been a huge emotional moment, but it was just a passing thing, and I loved that. I love how the film took stock and that she was just another byproduct of this incredibly crazy situation. I'm like, wow, This is kind of, I don't want to say brutal, because, even at the time, there's been way more brutal animation.
Right.
Some we've seen, some we haven't talked about, some we will talk about later. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't the brutality that got me. It was just like the pacing and the way they killed her off,
and how like matter of fact it was, more so, right?
How matter of fact, and again, where they knew they had this weird gross out thing coming, but they kept it to the end of the movie.
Right.
It was just, everything here was just paced very well.
It was.
The escalation all made sense. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The fact that we started out with biker gangs, and then we wound up with Kaneda with a bazooka trying to kill Tetsuo. It made sense how we got there. It
did. It kind of like made you go like, you're wondering how I got here, right? But that's really what happened at the end. And notably, Tetsuo's goal in all of this was to destroy AKIRA, which the government was keeping in like a giant refrigerator, essentially. And AKIRA is the thing, of course, as we noted, that was the weapon responsible for Tokyo's destruction, and it is a boy responsible for that destruction. But the government, because they were so afraid, probably just kept him, but removed every organ of his and stored it in a different vial of sorts.
Yeah, and they like did tests on him and stuff, just like figure out his power. And it was crazy because Tetsuo was on the hunt for AKIRA, and when they found like this big metal like dome, like this big giant ball. Mm-hmm. He opened it up expecting to find AKIRA prisoner inside, and he found at first what just looked like with a bunch of cans. And I wanted to text you going like, holy shit, AKIRA's just a bunch of beer? This is awesome. Because at first they looked like beer cans. And I'm like, what?
It was beer.
It was the beer we made along the way. But then eventually, he holds him up and sees like the remaining organs and like tendons and whatever of AKIRA. And
Yeah.
that's when Tetsuo starts to lose it a little bit, and he tries to control himself and his powers. But throughout the movie, various characters try to tell him, like, you have to come back. We have to, like, treat you. We
Right.
have to, like, we have to give you drugs. We have to do so much so you can control yourself and you don't destroy yourself and probably the world.
Right.
And Tetsuo's saying, like, nah, I think I got this.
Yeah.
And we learn he
yeah.
doesn't got it.
He does not. And the weird part about all this is that Tetsuo is trying to find Akira to destroy the thing that caused the third impact. I mean, the apocalypse. But then Tetsuo himself is causing a similar apocalypse by searching for Akira and trying to achieve Akira's power or something like that.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, at the end, what you get is what you get. I mean, Kaneda ends up surviving. Bazookas the hell out of Tetsuo, and Tetsuo just kind of explodes at the end of the movie, and just everything explodes with him. It's like a big white void, and it kind of like hints on like the idea of like human existence and whatnot and all that academic shit. But that's
Devilman.
Devilman, exactly. And that's what pretty much happens at the end, like another like apocalyptic explosion. But Kaneda survives, and I guess that kind of shows us that like humanity will always survive. You know, like cockroaches in the city, whatever you have.
I was just about to say the cockroach comparison, yeah. And I really appreciate the ending because they really fixate on Akira's bike a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed when the girl he thought was hot and another one of the gang, I forget his name, they ride away on their beaten up and broken, barely functional bikes, but they do ride off into the sunset quite literally. They do. And it's like, okay, humanity will go on. No matter what happens, people will find a way to live. It was essentially the reverse of Devilman, where Devilman, which had a similar ending, the white void, and, everyone dies.
Yeah.
Spoilers. We've talked about Devilman enough. So if you've made it this far and you're a listener, a regular listener, thank you. And if you're a new one, oh shit, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to spoil it.
My bad.
Yeah, watch Crybaby if you want, sure. Yeah. But it was a much more uplifting ending. And you know what? And like I said, I only watched this 4 or 5 hours ago now. I watched it for the first time in its entirety. And you know what? I enjoyed the heck out of it, but I do have to say, we kind of glossed over it, but I want to bring it back up. The middle, I was a little confused and it kind of dragged a little bit.
Yes, I see what you're saying, and it did do some dragging in the middle. And I think I was also kind of on the same wavelength with you, where I was kind of so swept up in all the looks of things and the appearance of things that throughout the middle, I was just like, what is actually going on? Because there were a couple different scenes that I was like, notably when Kaneda and like that girl that he thought was hot were like making their way through the sewer and like trying to find things and
they were dressed as like maintenance workers.
Right, trying to invade the government base to get out Tetsuo or find Tetsuo, and then Tetsuo's fight with all of like the green children. All the green children had like some backstory in there and like what they were doing. And there was also like just a lot of different themes thrown in there about like drug addiction for Tetsuo and like the government and involvement in technology creation and surviving the apocalypse. I don't know. There was just like kind of a lot thrown in there, and I guess Tetsuo I didn't really have a problem with because that escalated, as you said. It made sense how it escalated.
Right.
But everything else was just kind of like, what are you exactly doing? And maybe if it had and I hate to say this because, it was a 2-hour film, right? But maybe if there was another half hour to really flesh out that kind of stuff, it would be really great.
Hey, here's the thing. Now, because we had to get back, now we actually have to get to the criticisms here because, like I said, everything about the movie, all my positives are more on the production side. When it comes to the story, I don't really know how engaged I was. I wasn't super drawn in by a lot of these characters.
I agree.
Yeah, Tetsuo was just, it was tragic, and by the end, I was, he pulled me, but throughout most of the movie, just the little brother syndrome just wasn't doing anything for me.
Right.
Kaneda, cool, but that's really about it. You know what I mean?
I know. He really remained the same throughout. I think.
He was static as all hell.
Yeah, very static.
The hot girl character who wasn't even that hot didn't really do a lot in the story. She was just kind of there. She spotted off one or two of her idealistic intentions, and I'm like, okay, you're the progressive one. Cool. I am bored.
Yeah.
But some of the side characters got me. I love the bartender. And I have to
cool.
And I have to admit, part of my reason is because I watched the English dub, right? And I lost my fucking mind when I heard the bartender, because the bartender is the voice of several NPCs in Skyrim.
Really? Wow. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
I heard his voice and I was like, what the fuck? I got
oh my god! You got transported right back into the blacksmith shop.
I was about to say suddenly I am back in I was about to say Morrowind, but that's not Skyrim. No, suddenly I was back. I was about to say I'm back in Whitefell, and I'm the Thane again, and I'm like having a great time, and I'm like, get me a beer, sir, please.
Get me a beer right now.
So I was very into that, but the problem here is just our main cast wasn't doing a lot for me. Really didn't. Could have been a time thing, but I just feel like there wasn't. I don't know. It wasn't. Maybe this relates back to my misery index, where how miserable does a show have to be to get or movie has to, how miserable does a show or movie have to be for me to care? I should really learn to speak better. I'm on a podcast. I should really learn how to not fumble over my words like a moron. But the main cast just didn't pull me. And I can't really explain why, because I'm so fresh off the film that I didn't really internalize my opinions yet. All I can give right now are my emotional reactions.
I get it.
I just wasn't drawn in by these characters.
Yeah, the characters and the dialogue, for that matter. Like
yeah.
I don't know. I watched the sub on this one.
Nice.
And I just figured I would. I don't know. I just watched whatever I downloaded. So I was like, oh, guess I downloaded the sub. I'll watch the sub. And
you're becoming more of a weeb than I am.
I guess I am somehow. Don't stop me now, because things are gonna get weird. But I don't know. The dialogue and the characters didn't really speak to me in any way. I mean, Kaneda is very static, as we said, like not very three-dimensional. And that's okay. You don't really need that necessarily, but it's just, I don't know. I wasn't really like, when he was in trouble, I wasn't really like afraid, or I wasn't really like empathetic towards his situation at any time. I was just like, oh yeah, whatever. He'll be fine. He's the main character.
He's got plot armor.
Tetsuo, on the other hand, I mean, I spent the entire show just thinking he's a whiny bitch, but like, I mean, that was kind of his whole character appeal, like some
his shtick, yeah.
Little brother, King Joffrey kind of energy he had going.
Good comparison.
Yeah, and I was like, it was
less
all right.
of a psycho, but
yeah, less of a psycho for sure. And yeah, I don't know. Every other character just didn't really do much. And that's okay, I guess, because the main draw here was like the production, I think, and the main draw was how everything looked. I think, if we read the mangas, if we read like all 6 volumes of this manga, probably have a much better idea of what's actually going on.
Maybe a bit more of understanding, yeah.
The story was understandable. I just don't think it maybe had a lot of time to breathe as much. And a lot of things were explained enough, but not explained to the extent that I would like them to be. But gotcha. You know me, I like a plot explainer for
you love your details, and I can take them or leave them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a me thing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I guess we got to ask our big question. First of all, did you enjoy it? Did you like it? And does it hold up to this day, you think?
Even though the story didn't really relate to me at all, I gotta say yes to both of those. I really do. And again, it all comes down to the technical marvel that this film is, because could you be more negative towards it and say style over substance? Yes, but when that style is just so goddamn good,
so good, because the style it added to the substance.
it came so far around where the style really created substance. It's
It
like,
did.
how did you do this?
I have no idea.
It's like if you took an okay chicken cutlet, but you fucking breaded it with the most amazing fusion of like garlic panko you've ever had in your life.
Right.
And it created an additional crispy crust on top of that chicken. It's
Oh.
suddenly that style added to that substance, and then you're hungry just thinking about it.
yeah.
I am too.
Like if you
think
just cover some garbage in like some delicious mozzarella cheese, like I'm gonna eat it.
Exactly. But not to say that the story here was garbage. It's just I just wasn't interested.
Yeah, of course.
But I do think it holds up, and I do think it's one of those seminal weeb works, weeb rite of passage, things, other labels I've used over the tenure of this podcast. I do definitely believe this is one of those. Recently, and I think the Trash Days guys are responsible for this a lot, people have been calling it mid. I would not say that. I would not say the story might be average.
Yeah.
A very
sure.
average, very understandable tale. But then again, we have to ask ourselves, are we just so aware that things that have been inspired by it, that do we lack historical context here? That's entirely possible. I want everything that I say today to be taken with that grain of salt. That
Sure.
maybe I just couldn't appreciate the story because I'm so used to elements that I've seen in other works that probably were inspired by this. But back to my main point. This movie looks great, usually sounds really damn good. Or it's not even that it sounds good, like I said, it's the sound design more so than the soundtrack. Like the absence of sound and when they include certain sounds, that was all done very well. And this was a beautiful film to experience. Just not the best story that could have been told is my main point. So I would definitely recommend it, and I'm glad I watched it, and I enjoyed parts of it. That's my take on it, the whole thing.
There you go. I think I would have to answer yes and yes for that as well, because it does. You're making.
Yeah, no.
If you could just pantomime a blowjob the entire time I'm speaking, that would be
again.
wonderful.
I sense the academia coming back up, so I had to throw some levity in there for our sake.
Exactly.
Like, goddamn,
Thank you so much. We got to balance ourselves out, right? We can't sound like we're smart all the time because
Exactly.
we know we're not. So I mean, but yeah,
we have our moments.
I also got to say, yes,
Much like
and yes.
AKIRA, we have our moments.
We have our moments, exactly. And I have to say, it does definitely hold up. It's a marvel, and it does. I did enjoy it. And I think the reason I enjoyed it so much, and the reason I think it does hold up, is because when I think of this movie, I see it more as like an art film, not necessarily like something that is going to light the world on fire with its storytelling or dialogue or anything. Something that absolutely lit the world on fire with like how it looked, its imagery that inspired so many other things, so much art, so much other anime, so much other works in other genres as well.
Right.
Quentin Tarantino movies, I'm sure, took a lot from this as well. Like, there's a lot of different things that I think it did, and it's such like a seminal work, and it really just inspired a lot of stuff. So, I mean, and it's also, to my earliest point I made in this episode, it is the nicest anime that I've ever seen, the nicest animated thing I've ever seen, I think. And that's saying a lot, because the stuff we've seen now,
quite possible across all of animation for me. Yeah, and I'd have to think about that one a little bit before I answer that confidently. But this is just one of the most beautiful animated works I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, it might almost be as good as My Dress Up Darling, even.
Okay, full disclosure. Remember how we said we were going to keep watching My Dress Up Darling?
Yes.
I didn't watch her anymore.
We totally didn't. We totally didn't. It was a one-trick pony, and we all knew it.
We'll talk about this more when we do a retrospective on more of our episodes.
Yes.
But I just had to say that right now.
No, thank you for saying that. But yeah, I think Akira was it was incredible. I think I would have to recommend it to anybody because it is just such like a foundational work in anime and in culture. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's it. And not because I did enjoy it, but again, not particularly because of I was really invested in characters or anything, but I was really, really invested in how it looked and how it really just made this anime boom in the West at the time. So that's that, baby.
So yeah, thank you, Akira, for making a generation of American weebs.
Yeah, thank you, Akira, for lubing up the West to take the the big sweaty meat of the East.
It's bad.
Wow, oh my god, what a rousing podcast of anime conversation. Am I right, my compares? Am I right, my weebdom? Anywho, yeah, you can send us a message if you want. Did you like this podcast? Did you hate this podcast? Do you want to kill me? Do you want to drench me in Calaxosaur blood and watch me drink it? That's fine. Just send us an email at badanimepod@gmail.com or DM us on our Instagram at badanimepod, all one word. You can also find us on YouTube as Bad Anime, and you can leave a comment on whatever video you want to leave a comment on. We'll read them all anyways. We don't care. I love you. Kiss, kiss.
Simple Equations Podcast Network.